healing, salvation, and happiness. It's your season. It's your time. God has plans for your life to prosper you and to give you hope and a future. Join us and learn how God's love and power can bring hope and happiness to your life. This is your opportunity for motivation, encouragement, and purpose.
Welcome, church family. I'm Renee Johnson with the Daily Gospel Network, where we bring you the Lord's Word every day from some of the country's most inspiring churches and pastors. And today is no different. Let's check out one of the newest members of the Daily Gospel Network.
Welcome to Launch to Jesus Initiative. I'm your host, T.Latoya Cunningham. I'm really excited to have this dynamic woman of God on the platform today. She's also a podcaster. She brings a wealth of experience and information about, dealing with people who've gone through trauma. I'm going to allow her to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her before we start in today's interview. Welcome.
Hi, I'm really excited. This is so cool. This is actually my first, I guess you want to call it, online interview conversation. So this is wonderful. I'm so privileged to be here. I'm so thankful. Thank you.
So tell the viewers a little bit about your podcast, the name of it, and your journey on this podcast. Like, what is your purpose? What are you passionate about that you hope that the people may receive when they tune into your podcast?
Yeah, so first, yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Venica Williams, and I am a producer and a host of Reclaiming Your Voice podcast. The podcast has been around for about a year, and it did go through its own little transition. It wasn't always called Reclaiming Your Voice. In the beginning, it was called Coaching Through Podcast with Venica Williams, and it shifted when my own reclaiming my voice journey has shifted. But Reclaiming Your Voice, the podcast came about because, as I stated about 2 years ago, I left the job. 2020 did its thing to all of us, but I set some time away. I just didn't want to work anymore. So doing a 3-month sabbatical, just away from work and away from everything, God had just put in my spirit that you need to come out of your comfort zone. And I was like, oh, okay. And I kind of knew what he was talking about, but I was scared. So as he knew, I was like, okay, I know you know what I mean. So let me be clear. I want you to come on camera. Immediately when he said that, my insecurity started rushing in. I've always had an insecurity since I was in grade school about the sound of my voice, how I pronounce my words. I would just tease a lot about my voice. So all those insecurities came in, and I'm a mid-aged woman. I'm 50 years old, and I'm telling you this 2 years ago is when, wow. 48 is when God was like, no, like enough is enough. We need to start doing some work with that. And yeah, the podcast. And then when I started the podcast, I started a life coaching business. And that's where Coaching Through came from, because it was like, oh, okay, I'm going to coach people through whatever the situation is. But then I was actually working with a coach, and she was like looking at everything that I have, because I have at the time I didn't have Facebook, but it was Instagram and Pinterest, and I was doing all these things online. And she was like, can you look at all your things? It's not aligned. And I was like, okay, I'll look at it. I didn't get it until I looked, and I even listened back to some of the things I was saying. And what was consistent was reclaiming your voice. I was organically saying it. I didn't even realize it.
Wow.
So as I realized that, and it was just more reclaiming your voice here and reclaiming your voice here, and I'm online saying these words, I'm like, oh, that's what's happening. I'm reclaiming my voice.
I think so many people, what happens to them is that God will give them insight of what their purpose is. and they ignore it. And that's why it's so important to have people to bounce these ideas off of, because you wasn't even really, taking in consideration that you were saying this the same thing over and over. And God was trying to say, hello, reclaim your voice. Hello. And that's why I tell people it's so important to be in fellowship with one another. It could be someone that God uses in that hour, in that moment, in that brief second, in that intersection in life to inspire you to go to the next step. And so I think that's so powerful that all these context clues of our purpose God puts in us, and we just don't see the subliminal message.
That's it. Yeah.
So that's powerful. So when you reclaim your voice, what does that mean to you?
Well, I've been divorced, and now I'm a single mom for the second time. And I've experienced a lot of things in my life. There's a lot of trauma growing up and through my teenage years. And I did all these things, and I know I've grown. Like I have these accomplishments. I look pretty good on paper. But what God had to show me is that you did all these things, but you didn't really bring me in.
Right. That's good.
You were doing all those things, and yes, I was there with you, but you didn't invite me in. I was not included. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, you were there. But as the journey continued, he just kept giving me these downloads of, yes, I was there, honey, but you don't know who you are. Who are you? Who are you? I've been codependent. I began being a people pleaser at the age of 5. Didn't know how to speak up for myself. I shriveled away. I hid out. And as far as being a people pleaser, with this kind of like, when I talk about this, I always think about the Coming to America character. Whatever you like that was me. I did not have my own. I had my own thoughts. But if someone came by and say, oh, well, what about this? I'm like, okay, that's good. And I just forget everything that I thought, my own opinion. And I was really afraid of really standing out. Like, but you don't know who you are. As you come out, do the work to come out of your comfort zone. Let's go through each layer represented something for me. And once I began to chop away at being codependent, chop away of being a people pleaser and letting go of that fear of people. And I even had a fear of myself.
Wow.
And God had to show me that. And how God really took me through this process of, you don't know yourself. And I needed to come to grips to, I'm afraid of me. I'm afraid of what God has in me. And that was a piece of that voice that I've been holding on to, that I was afraid to speak and say. And it all connected so much to, my voice. I didn't like how I sound. Well, how can I reclaim my voice if I don't even like my tone of my voice? I would have irritated people. Why do people always get so frustrated when I say something? But that was all that was his purpose for me. That was part of one of my spiritual gifts, which is exploitation.
Mm-hmm.
I speak to encourage people.
You said so much, because I mean, my mind was just fluttering. When I was a child, I had went through some trauma. And one of the things that was the outcome of the trauma was stuttering. And I had a trauma-induced stutter. And I didn't realize that was something that was actually a thing. And so then after research, and I went, and just really looking through some information that I found online and speaking to speech pathologists, I realized that's the thing that happens with children. I became somewhat, not really in a profound way. You had a people pleaser. I was a protector. I realized that my silence was agreement. I didn't say anything, so my silence was agreement, and it set the tone of how things happen in my atmosphere and in my dominion and my dunamis power, the authority I'm supposed to walk in. And what you said is really this life transform. I hope people are really catching this. You said you didn't like the sound of your voice, but the enemy is not going to like the sound of your voice because you're proclaiming the truth. So there's going to be a problem. And I remember years ago, I was maybe 14, 15, I read this book, and you're going to know what I'm saying. I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings by Maya Angelou. And her voice, she was silent for years. And her grandmother was her encourager. I know you're going to talk, and I encourage everybody to read the book for themselves, but the narrative of the book is that she was assaulted and abused and in trauma, and she said something, and when she said something, that her family went and physically harmed her, the assaulter, the person that assaulted her. And so she thought her voice had the power of murder, of hurt. And so she pulled back her voice and would not talk. It's a very powerful book, and it was one of my favorites. So when you say you didn't like the sound of your voice makes people uncomfortable because what you carry.
Yes. And you absolutely right. And I had to learn that. I was on the phone with a girlfriend of mine, and she actually helped me return to this when we was talking about my spiritual gift. And when I looked up exaltation in the dictionary, and I have it written up like above and on my desk just to be a reminder. Exaltation also means disruptor and instigator.
Come on, like Jesus.
So it's like it blew my mind that my words have value. My words have power. When I speak, I am supposed to shift the atmosphere. I'm supposed to wreck stuff.
Yes.
So it made sense. And actually exactly what you said was me. Instead of me like going forward with what I was saying, it made me shrink back. Oh, they upset. I shouldn't have said that. Oh, well, let me go this direction. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. When I say something, people's like, oh, that's ridiculous. I shouldn't have said that. No, I am going to use my voice how God designed me to use it, and he's going to do that work. Wow. Right. And it's not for me to be concerned about how they feel afterwards. If I'm truly working in my gift, that's not my concern.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my intention to offend anybody. But if I know in that moment I'm using and I'm in my gift and God is using me in that moment, that's for him to do the increase. That's for him to water. I am to speak those seeds that he's calling me to speak. And this took so different shifts in my life as he was like, no, this is reclaiming your voice. And I was like, okay. So now that I'm getting it, I came up with the courage to, okay, this is what this business is going to be. It's going to be reclaiming your voice, life coaching. Because at the time I was still in this space of life coaching. I give some context. So I have a background in mental health, working with women and children, and also therapy. So I went through this shift of, okay, no longer really desiring to be a therapist, but still I love talking about passion. I love talking to women. Back in the day, I used to be a hairdresser. If anyone had been in the hair salon, a lot of us, our hairdresser was our quote unquote therapist.
Yes, absolutely.
Our hairdresser, all the things, and the men in our lives and our kids and all these things. And early on, I had that gift. And I did not realize it. Mind you, that was still in that span of time when the devil was like, you need to shut up. Just shut up. Mm-hmm. I'm going to increase your insecurity of your voice. I'm going to trip you up. Just shut it down some. Mm-hmm. So I stopped doing therapy professionally. But I'm just like, I'm not throwing away the gifts that God gave me because I can't help it. So when it turned into life coaching, that was like a neat experience. And then that shifted. I experienced so many transitions on this journey to reclaim my voice. It's at times it was just really overwhelming. And then back in April, I was watching something on YouTube, and then God just began to speak to me, and he was like, reclaiming your voice is a ministry.
Amen.
And I'm like, whoa. So I'm pouring out in tears because I'm like, okay, first another shift. Okay.
Yes.
But then it was like, oh, it started to make sense to me. And I'm telling you, just out of just my yes, a podcast, the podcast I changed the name of the podcast to Reclaiming Your Voice. Everything was completely changed. Everything online is this reclaiming your voice, reclaiming your voice. And I started a YouTube channel that was like, okay. And I have a blog on my website, is reclaimingyourvoice.com. The your is spelled UR voice. And I've written a blog years ago and I stopped it. I started. So this is my third time. And as soon as I gave God my yes, everything just became ministry.
Wow.
It just started pouring out of me. You know, I would be asleep and I would wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm running to my computer. I'm just writing. And this things were just pouring out of me. And I'm just like, what is going on? And I'm like, okay, God, I'm just going to do this. I'm loving this. This is so exciting. I don't know where you're taking me. And the moment I realized this is it was when I be on Instagram and online and I'm talking from the voice of being a life coach, I really wouldn't get any responses. No one would comment. No one would say anything. It would be crickets. But at the moment that shit happened, I have people DMing me saying, oh, that blog blessed me and what you said and this and this and this. And I was like, okay. So reclaiming your voice is not a destination. It's an absolute journey, and you experiencing and learning who you are. And also in that process, when God was like, you don't know who you are, who are you? In time, he started teaching me about values and core values and non-negotiables. And what all that means is, your core values are a belief system, whether you are in Christ or not. But what do you believe? Do you believe that animals should be taken care of in a nice way? Do you believe in science? Do you believe in what is your belief around relationships and work environments like this? What do you believe? Do you believe in self-care? Do you believe in manifestation? Whatever your beliefs are, that will help you to discover who you are, whether it's parts of you that you don't like about yourself or you do like about yourself. And when he started teaching me about that, I was like, I like being outside. I like sitting under a tree. And it was it was little things, but I began to realize, wow, this is who I am. And I started to realize when I continued doing these things, I felt fruit coming from it. I felt joy. I felt happiness. I felt a clarity. I felt like, oh, you want to go doing that? I don't want to do that. I don't like doing that.
Well, let's go right there because that's important. We learn to say no. We learn to say, I'll pass. And I'll tell you a quick funny story. My son was younger and I was disciplining him. And I'm like, I'm going to tear you up. And he said to me, no, thank you. And he was about 6. And I was so tickled with him, he didn't get a spanking. But when he said it, I never forgot it because he was like, no, I'm not in agreement with it. I don't want it. And what happens is we get so conditioned about from being, politically correct, from having social graces that we don't consider ourselves, but consider other people more than ourselves. Instead of saying, this hurts, like a spanking would have hurt. And he said, no, thank you. This hurts me. I'm not comfortable with this. No, thank you. And we think that if we don't say anything, that it's going to hurt less. Well, I'll just go along with it, and just be quiet. And one of the things that's really concerning to me, especially with women, but also with men, but especially with women, when we agree to things that we did not agree to and come in agreement with it without us saying a thing. Our actions come in agreement with it. For instance, if you're in a relationship or you're a parent and you come home and you see the house has clothes everywhere, by you saying it'll take too much effort to exert my displeasure from this, I'm just going to pick up the stuff and put it away. It's going to always be on the floor. People don't respect boundaries if we don't assert ourselves. And we can assert ourselves without feeling guilty. We can assert ourselves and say, no, I don't like that. And I just recently, the last couple of years, learned how to say no and feel good about it. How do you say no now?
Depending what it is, no, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Depending what it is, I'll just say no as a sentence and go about my business. Sometimes I could be in the middle of something and I'm like, no, and I'll just keep going.
That's good.
Right. I'm not expecting to have that back and forth but why? And like, no.
And the word says something about that. He said, let your yes be your yes and your no be your no.
Be sure.
Good.
Don't be warm with it. Don't give those people, and it could be someone who's a manipulator, or even it could be your children and they ask you for a cookie. You're like, no. Learning how not to open that door. Mommy, can I have a cookie? No, versus, well, honey, if you do your homework, you have a cookie. That child is now going to get used to, these conditions. If I keep tapping on mommy and tapping on her, the same thing a lot of times when we go through with people and manipulating people, and we get our lives are stuck in these relationships. You give certain people a crack, they're going to bust it open. Right. And I truly believe when we understand and know who we are, first as a human being and individual, and then we'll get to the point of knowing who we are in God. No will be such a powerful, peaceful thing to you. You won't have to feel that, but I feel guilty if I say no. No. Did Jesus walk the earth and heal every single person? He did not. He didn't heal everybody.
And he told them.
When he sent the disciples out, when he sent them out and gave them the commission, and don't take this. When people don't agree with what you're saying, dust yourself off and keep it stepping. Even Christ had boundaries. He taught us how to have boundaries also.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about boundaries. How important is boundaries?
Boundaries, I have learned, and I started really learning the importance of boundaries when I was working with the substance abuse population. Lack of boundaries can kill and cause you to put yourself in situations that can be very harmful to you and other people. Boundaries are to put a safety net, a safety for yourself. It's not just about, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that, and you pushing people away, but first have boundaries with yourself.
Yes.
Also learning how to tell yourself no. Right? Trusting yourself. If you say you're going to do something, do it. I don't care if it's something little like, I work really hard today. When I come home, I'm going to take a bath. I'm too tired to take a bath. Now, in the morning, now you're going to be getting up and then take a bath and stuff just keep going. Have boundaries with yourself and say, even when I'm tired, I'm going to care for myself and do what I say for myself. And I'm going to go take a bath.
Do you believe that these boundaries that you're talking about help with self-discipline?
It does. I'll share a little story. I have a dear friend of mine. She's like a sister. Back when I used to do hair, I met her when I was actually pregnant with one of my children. So we've been friends for like 28 years. And I've always did her hair, no matter if I move somewhere, go somewhere, or I stop doing hair in the salons, I come home. 9-10 o'clock in the morning, every Friday. That was my girl. She's my sister. I'm doing her hair. When my profession changed and I saw that, this is a lot, I'm not going to be able to do this. And then I moved away. So I moved further away from her, driving the distance. It was just so many things that was going on in my life. I'm like, okay, I have to make this decision. I don't think I can do her hair anymore. mind you, this was a long year relationship. She brought me in with her family. It was like I became family to them. I would always come over for Christmas. We had this amazing relationship. But one thing that made me be fearful of choosing me, having my boundaries, because I knew that when I went out to work at that point, it was just so stressful. I really didn't have extra time to do anything. I had to realize within myself, okay, if I do this, I'm not going to talk to her as much as I used to. It's going to change our friendship the way I'm used to it being all these years. I knew it. So it took me a while. I had this conversation with her and she was bummed out, but I didn't want to leave her hanging. So, okay, well, find another hairstylist. And then when you do, just let me know. It took, I would say, like a month, because she would call me and say, niece, look, you know, could you? And I was like, oh, I'm struggling. Like, I shouldn't say yes. But then I said yes, and I'm on my way there, and I'm heated with myself. I'm driving an hour away, pissed off with myself, not at her, at myself. Yeah. Because I said I was going to do this. I broke my own boundary with myself. I'm driving, I'm irritable. I got all these emotions in me that I caused because I did not honor my own boundaries. It happened like a couple other times. And the last time I was like, girl, listen, like we talked, I cannot do any this anymore. I love you, but I can't. And we good, we still good friends to this day. But I share that story because the guilt and shame that comes out of that is really real. Yes. But the best advice I can give, when you feel that pushback within yourself, don't look at it as a bad sign. Look at it as a good sign that you are finally finding your voice, that you are finally honoring yourself and honoring your own needs to say no. And even if it risks relationships, even if it risks you not able to do certain things or go out or have the same life that you had, you have to risk some of those things to honor the self that you've never honored before. That's good. You have to take a risk. And it's going to feel weird and it's going to feel uncomfortable. But on the other side, I would say this, I guarantee the more you practice this, the more you honor yourself and know the difference between selfishness and looking at yourself as a priority. Mm-hmm. And that really helped me with my no. When I say no, I mean no. And not feeling bad, not feeling guilty about it, that I have to do that other under work, like, you know, but I do feel guilty. I had to give that to God. I had to give that to God. Because which one do you choose? You driving out a road all frustrated, angry at yourself? Or do you rather choose, that was difficult, but that felt good. So when the next time it comes in, and this is so helpful, not just with relationships, but also when you choose a job. Yes. When you choose other decisions, how you want to raise your kids, the example you want to be to your children. And that's a hard piece. Parent guilt is, in my opinion, that's hard, because it's like we're teaching our children all these things. You got to say no, stranger days, or all these things, but how does it feel when our kids tell us no? Yeah, yes. How do we do that, but also build up our children to let them know you need to say no? You need to say no. And have that insight so that they can feel safe. So then they won't have that moment when they're driving down the road, frustrated, angry at themselves, because they don't know their own boundaries.
For more information on today's Spotlight Church, visit them on the internet and follow them on social media. I'm Renee Johnson with the Daily Gospel Network. And until next time, remember, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us.